Happy Monday, Canada and soccer fans from coast to coast. We're back on the OneSoccer Hangouts. If you were expecting to see Stephen Hart and you're looking around the grid and not seeing him, we apologize. But once again, we were unable to nail down the Halifax Wanderers bench boss. Got called into a very important meeting at the last minute, which we understand is a little more important than these digital Hangouts. As much as we love them, we understand time constraints. So we will try again to have him on in the future. But for today, we're going to move on to a different topic. Asa Rehman coming in on his day off. What a guy that Asa is. And as well, Kurt Larson and Oliver Platt joining me, Adam Jenkins, today. So instead of talking to Stephen Hart, we are going to talk about the Canadian men's national team and what it will take for them to get to Qatar 2022. We're going to go over the format a little bit, but most importantly, we're going to ask our three analysts today to break down their best 11 players they think John Herdman should call upon to get to Qatar next year. Next year, 2022. We're still 2 years away. Honestly, time doesn't even matter.
Get it right.
I know, man. I'm sorry, but
I just wanted to get a word in real quick. Okay,
yeah, that's the longest you've gone without speaking. I'm very impressed. Oh God, we're having fun 5 weeks into this quarantine. Now, last week, Friday even, David Klanikin suggested that maybe things weren't going so well in the Kurt Larson household. But has your wife filed for the divorce papers like David Klanikin imagined, Kurt?
No, quite the opposite. I don't mean me filing for divorce. I mean that we have discovered that I think we like each other and love each other even more than we did coming into this. We've survived climbing Mount Kilimanjaro together. So we were on a mountain for 7 days. We've survived hiking through Patagonia. We've survived going to Brazil and Russia, 2 World Cups, and now we are surviving this. So I think it's safe to say we are a strong couple.
Good to hear, Kurt. Yeah, I think it's similar in our household as well. It's us against the kids. So we're a united front as well, tackling the homeschooling and all the rest. And yeah, we've really managed to bond over the last 5 weeks. You said, gosh, I have no idea where the time has gone. It's been pretty crazy here as well.
Ollie, how was your Easter weekend?
Like every other weekend for the past month, I'd say. Pretty.
Time is a construct.
yeah. But no, we're hanging in there. I like the positive vibe from the other members of the panel today, so I won't be too much of a downer here.
One in particular, I'm assuming.
Sorry?
I said one member in particular, I'm assuming.
Well, Adam, we can always rely on you. It's Kurt I'm worried about more.
Well. Yeah, Ken Kurt worries about the rest of us, so it all balances out. Okay, let's get into our first main topic here today. So we're going to talk about Canada and what it will take for them to go to Qatar 2022. Now, with the friendlies being canceled against Trinidad and Tobago and any real last-minute fixtures that John Herdman could have scheduled to try and get themselves into that top 6, which would qualify them for the Hex, looks like they're just going to miss out in 7th place. So what that means, if you're not familiar with the system, I'll try and make this as simple and as fast as possible. For CONCACAF's qualifying for the World Cup, they split it up into 2 sections. So the Hex, you've heard about it 1,000 times, stands for the hexagonal tournament, which is 6 teams, aka Hex. And the top 3 teams in that Hex tournament, they play home and away, group stage style. The top 3 teams, they qualify automatically for Qatar 2022. That 4th place team joins the rest of the association, still trying to make their bid for the World Cup. And those teams are broken into different groups. Some have 4, some have 3. Really, the logistics don't matter. What the important thing to remember is that you have to win your group, and that is also a home and away fixture. After that, all of the group winners go into a knockout tournament. The winner of that knockout tournament will play that 4th place team. That's when they come back in. And then the winner of the 4th team in the Hex and the winner of the knockout stage will go on to play the FIFA Interconfederation tournament, where there's 4 remaining teams from South America, Oceania, Asia, and of course CONCACAF. 2 of those teams will join the other 3 from CONCACAF. That's 5 teams. Okay, any questions, anybody? Because I know that was pretty simple to digest.
Just go on Wikipedia and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, there's nice videos with animations, but the Zoom technology isn't quite there yet. So now that we've laid the groundwork,
just know that Canada hasn't been to the Hex in a long time.
1997, I think, was the last one.
But there's a second chance.
There's a second chance
now. There's a second chance now.
And the important thing to note, too, is this is all assuming that CONCACAF doesn't change the format to qualify with the ongoing pandemic. So that's how it stands right now. We could speculate. We're really good at speculating. But today we're going to focus on Canada's roster in particular. So I've asked our 3 pundits to put together their 11 teams. We're going to break it down position by position, and we will start at the back. So with this chance to get to Qatar 2022, they could play up to 13 games. So they're going to need a pretty fit team. They're going to need a very skilled team, and they're going to have to address some areas of concern. An area, though, Kurt, where they haven't been too worried about in years past is goalkeeping. They've had great stuff from Milan Borjan lately. But is it time to give the gloves over to Max Crépeau?
No, and quite frankly, it's a disrespectful question to ask. I know in one recent depth chart I saw, somebody had placed Max Crépeau above Borjan. Incredibly disrespectful to a player who has played at the highest level, played in the Champions League. He's appeared close to 50 times for Canada. He's the most senior and veteran goalkeeper this country has. I think there's no doubt you have to stick with him. Yes, he has made mistakes recently in big matches. We're looking at Gold Cups and other games like that where in recent memory, he's let that thought creep into people's minds that Max Crépeau is ready. But as we saw in one of Max Crépeau's recent appearances, I believe it was against Iceland, he also doesn't appear to be ready to be the number one goalkeeper at the moment. So you have to stick with Borjan, who's done it at the highest level, and who is one of the highest achievers of all time in terms of Canada's men's national team.
Yeah, the resume speaks for itself. I agree that Borjan, if I had to field a team this weekend, he'd get the nod. But I think that there could be an opportunity for Crépeau to creep into this lineup and to make a case for himself with the Whitecaps. If he had maybe a month of games, maybe 6 or 7 solid results, he appears to be hitting his prime right now. So I think there could be an opportunity for Max to play his way into the lineup over Borjan.
Yeah, I think there's a way for him to play his way in if Borjan does regress. But I just think we treat Milan Borjan like he's 37 years old sometimes, and he's 32.
Right.
He's only going to be 34 by the time, or I think 34 or 35 by the time the Qatar World Cup comes around. For a goalkeeper, that to me is not really an issue. And when you look at the level that Milan Borjan is playing at in the Champions League with Red Star Belgrade, he is still the guy to me. I think it's a competition, and Crépeau can stake his claim, but for me, Borjan is still the guy right now.
So you guys used the wrong language there. There's no way Crépeau can play himself into this role. The only thing that can happen is Borjan playing his way out of it. And I think if you're John Herdman, if you're the coaching staff of Canada, you do kind of have Milan Borjan on notice a little bit, because he has had a few moments in recent memory where you start to question it and say, is it time to give someone else an opportunity? But no, absolutely not. Stick with Borjan. It was just a few years ago that we saw him have one of the best matches I've ever seen from a goalkeeper when he held Mexico off the board from scoring 7 or 8 goals in that World Cup qualifying match. So it's Borjan's job.
All right, pretty good consensus to start this one off. The next question, though, just because I like to bring in a little chaos to our shows, left back. We've talked about it before. Is Alphonso Davies a left back? Bayern says yes. Will John Herdman agree? Who wants to try and tackle this one first? Because I'm sure there's a lot to say about it. Kurt, do you want the first word?
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me, just because one of the recent conversations John Herdman had with our Gareth Wheeler on Inside the Game, he seemed to hint that Canada had one of the best left backs in the world. And that is true. But he made sure to say that Canada has one of the best left backs in the world. And I think that was kind of sending a message that he's going to continue to play him there. I don't know that for sure, but that he is going to continue to play him there. Should he? I don't think so. I think that Alphonso Davies is an extremely good left fullback for Bayern Munich, and probably a good fullback at the top level anywhere. But does Canada need him there? No, Canada needs him further upfield, as we saw in the Nations League loss to the United States, that 4-1 loss. So, no, I do not have Alphonso Davies a left back. I have Kamal Miller there, who put in a fantastic shift in that 2-0 win over the United States. Should not have lost his position. And right now, he is the best option there ahead of Adekugbe.
Yeah, I think for me, this depends on who you're playing. I think when we go into that group stage of the lower ranked tournament and we're playing some of the minnows in CONCACAF, yes, Alphonso Davies makes sense at left back. You don't really need a fully defensive back four in a game like that. I do agree with Kurt that when we're talking about stronger opposition, we're talking about the United States away, as we just saw.
Why would you change things though? Why not just give your left fullback reps? Don't say, oh, well, we're playing St. Kitts today, we're just going to put Alphonso Davies at left back. Let your left fullback, let Kamal Miller develop there and play next to the same center back.
Because he's not doing any developing there. He's standing in the opposition half and trying to overlap down the left wing, and he's not getting any real test defensively. So for me, you want an attacking weapon in those kinds of games from left back. As I was saying, in a back four away against Mexico or the USA, I would worry about us putting Alphonso Davies there and him coping with the defensive side. And I think we've seen that at the Gold Cup. We saw it in Orlando against the US. And so for me and my team, projecting ahead to a World Cup, projecting ahead to the most difficult matches, the guy I have right now who I really liked in the most recent camp was Zohan Basson.
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, so are you going to agree with Zohan, or are you going to let Ollie defend it first?
I'm going to let Ollie defend it first.
He's 20 years old. I thought he looked really impressive against, it was Barbados, weren't much of a test, but Iceland are a decent side. He can play both sides, but he's left-footed, so I like him on that left-hand side. And I think we've got to be in a position where we're kind of, to a certain extent, looking at young players and saying, okay, who's going to be ready in 2022 if we give them 2 years of experience now? And this kid's come through Lille's academy. He's now playing, he hasn't played a ton, but he's at a club in Belgium's top flight. And for me, that gives him a slight edge over players like Adekubi, who's in Norway, and Kamal Miller. You're just not sure how many minutes he's going to get with Orlando. It could be any one of those guys. It could be Diadi and Abzi even. There's a pool of young players there that could take that spot.
Why are we overlooking the guy who did it at the highest level in Canada's biggest home game in a long time? Why are we just overlooking that performance?
I don't think we're overlooking him. He's an option.
I go with Alphonso Davies. He is one of the best at that position right now, and he's a different player now than he was 6 months ago. This guy is turning into one of the most dynamic players in the world, and he's one of the best two-way players in the world as well. So he gives you a great option going forward, but he provides so much cover defensively as well, and we've seen him do that at Bayern Munich. The way he tracks back, he wins balls, he makes it so difficult for the other team when they're attacking. I think that's why you slot him there, you have him there, and he is the best left back for Canada of all time, and one of the best left backs to play the game ever. And he starts right now.
And that's not to say too
CONCACAF opposition would love to hear you say that.
He'd run.
If I'm a defender anywhere in CONCACAF right now, I'm breathing a sigh of relief if Ace is the head coach of Canada.
He's undressing Azpilicueta. Like, it doesn't matter who's where. If anyone's on that side, he's running past him anyway. He doesn't have to be further up the park to do damage.
So to me, if you're putting Davies there, you've got to be confident in that particular game that you're going to be in the opposition half more often than not. You're going to be playing on the front foot. You're going to have the ball. You're going to be doing all the things that Bayern Munich do. I don't know if Canada is in a position to assert themselves against Mexico and the United States and against World Cup teams in that kind of way yet.
That's not to say, too, that if Alphonso Davies starts a match or starts a tournament at left back, he can't be moved up if they need offense. So let's keep this debate going. It's healthy, and I don't think you're going to have a consensus among most people. Everyone's going to have an opinion on Davies, but the suffice to say is that we're lucky to have Alphonso Davies in this position. It's a fortunate position that Canada's not necessarily used to. Okay, on to center backs. Kurt, we know you love your center backs, and we know that you're a pretty good center back yourself. So pick your two center backs for Canada right now.
All right. Well, based on my last remarks, it's not going to be a surprise to anyone that I'm looking at recent results in recent games to come up with a determination here. It's also not going to surprise anyone who's followed my career for a long time that Donnell Henry is not on the field for me. I think we have a large enough sample size to know that Donnell Henry is probably this country's third or fourth best center back at the moment. Somebody who is he's made mistakes in big moments. I'm not sure he can be trusted right now. So I'm going to go with the guys I do trust, the guys who were able to get a result recently, and that's Vitória and Cornelius. I think there's no arguing against those guys. Did Vitória have a great game against the United States in Orlando recently? No, but I also think the game plan going into that wasn't as sound as it should have been. So There's a few guys to consider down the line, a Strafe, a Haino, but we just haven't seen those guys recently. So I'm going to go with Steven Vittoria and Derek Cornelius as my center backs at the moment.
Yeah, like Cornelius should be on everyone's team, I think. Yeah. For me, the worry with Steven Vittoria is, where is Steven Vittoria in winter of 2022? At the age he's at.
Yep.
I'm just trying to get us to a World Cup, Oliver Platt. Let's just get to a World Cup first, right?
I think you got to think ahead and try and build a team that can peak at that time, right? And I don't know if Vittoria is the guy, which is why I still have Daniil Henry in there, because I just don't see another option right now.
Yeah, I think this is where I try to get the younger player in. I would have Vittoria, I guess, if I had to field the lineup this weekend, but similar to what Oliver was saying earlier, in trying to create a pairing with the younger player out left. But for me in the middle, I'd try Didic or Zator, give one of those kids a chance to maybe create some chemistry with Cornelius and invest in your future there. You're cringing, Kurt. Nothing.
Those guys.
If we're gonna take chances, why wouldn't you go? Is Jakovic okay?
He's even older than Vittoria is.
I think.
Yeah, but is he not? He's playing at a much better standard, is he not?
Then you may as well go with Vittoria.
Yeah. I don't disagree with anyone that Daniil Henry has probably had too many chances and made a lot of mistakes. I just do not see where else you go right now. If one of Zator or Didic can continue to develop and maybe get to a higher level, 100% give them a good chance. Maybe give Joel Waterman a chance. He's in MLS now as well.
Joel Waterman's actually an interesting shout. And we were speculating that if these games against Trinidad recently were to go through, we were wondering if he would have been called in. So
there's potential options there, but right now I still think Henry has to be the incumbent for me.
It's just that thing with him. I mean, Henry, it's been like this his entire career, even when he was at Toronto FC. And I know he didn't like me when he was there because of some of the reporting I did. But he would have those games where you saw something. You saw what West Ham saw. You saw this guy has the ability to play at the highest standard. But there was always those one or two moments per game when he would do something that could cost you the game. Yeah. And you can't have that out of your center backs. So I understand why Oliver Platt's gone with him, taking a bit of a risk because the pool's not that deep there. But I'm going to go with the guys, like I said, Vittoria and Cornelius, who got results recently.
I think too, it's a good note, and for CPL fans, it's if you're going to see a CPL player, it's likely going to be a Didic or Waterman as the former player. So center back will be certainly one of the more interesting spots to keep an eye on. Spot that's not so interesting, right back, because it seems to have one name penciled firmly on it. That's Richie Laryea, and I don't know that Borjan or Godinho is ready to take that spot. Anyone want to disagree with me, Asa?
Yeah, I think it's mostly nothing against the other two guys, but it's because of what Richie Laryea has done. I mean, he's really come on in the last year. I didn't expect this from him. He plays with so much fire, and I think that's important for this group as well. So he just injects a bit of life into the rest of the squad, and I think that's a big reason why he's on this roster, and he's really cemented his place in the starting 11.
Yeah, Larea's done really well. I think. I don't see him regressing or declining anytime soon, but I think you do have to be cognizant of the fact that it's only been one season for him. And so you want to create some competition there. And I do think Borjan had a good start to the MLS season before it got called off. There's a little pool of players behind him, but right now it's Laryea for sure.
Oliver, would you? So I have Laryea too, because I think you have to. But Oliver, would you play Laryea there in a road World Cup qualifying match against one of the top 3 or 4 in CONCACAF, or would you look elsewhere? Because for me, it's similar to Davies, right? You feel comfortable if you're going to be getting forward, if you know you're going to have the ball in the attacking third. Laryea has shown to be excellent there with Toronto FC recently. But if you're pinned back, do you still want Laryea there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you do. When I consider the other options, I think he's quick. He can deal with a fast winger. Depends what type of player you're going up against, I guess. I would still have Laryea there, and I think maybe someone like Kamal Miller could balance it out, and you have a bit more of a defensive player at left back. But as I said, there is a pool of players underneath, and you look at someone like Zator, who can be a much more defensive right back, and if you develop a guy like that and give him a few opportunities, I'm not against that at all.
Well, I'm told that's why Zator was called into the last Nations League camp, right, was because they saw his ability to provide cover at right fullback. It's funny that a guy who was developed as a center back in the Whitecaps Academy is now actually kind of developing as a right fullback late in his career because of needs at Cavalry FC and the national team. But the reason I asked you about playing on the road in a difficult environment is because I think Zator is the kind of player you need there. Gritty, can win everything in the air, can fight. He's fast, and he's simple. He plays within his means. So, but Laryea is my guy. Zator is second right now.
I think the defensive line, more or less, there's not a ton of movement that we would foresee other than the big question about Davies. Laryea, I agree, seems pretty penciled in. And then the center backs, some options, but I think we've established it, especially at the beginning, you want to trust before you experiment too much. But speaking of experimenting, we've seen John Herdman try so many different iterations of his midfield. We've seen them play with 4, with boxes. We've seen them play with 3. What's your ideal midfield setup? Asa, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, Adam, I'm going to use the coaching cop out and say it's fluid. But if I had to submit my lineup, I'd go with 3. So I line up with a 4-3-3, and again, helping that back line, I would have the 2 defensive stalwarts with Samuel Piette and Marc-Anthony Kaye. So I start there. I really help out my defense there, and those 2 guys, they'll be the engine of the team. So the 2 defensive holding midfielders, and then in front of them, I was debating between Osorio and Arfield. I'm going to go with Arfield in front. He's great box to box. He gives you so much. He's very versatile. So it's the 3 midfielders, Kaye, Piette, and in front of them, I've got Scott Arfield.
Leaving Osorio out of your team. Leaving Osorio out of your team is questionable, but I'll go to Ollie on this.
All right. Well, I've got them in a 4-3-3 to start as well. And for me, when you look at this team, the biggest strength you see straight away is the pace of the attack and the ability to break at speed and play in transition. So I'm trying to emphasize those kinds of qualities when I pick my midfield. And that means that I don't think you necessarily need a real playmaker in there. I think what you need is players who work hard, can get stuck in, and have a bit of tactical intelligence about them and understand the system. A bit like Liverpool, you don't really see a dynamic playmaker in there, but they work their socks off in that midfield 3.
I think Canada has that, though. And Canada doesn't have the player you're describing.
I'm explaining why I've left out Marc-Anthony Kaye, who I think is the closest to that player, someone who can pick a pass. So I've got Piette in the holding role, and then I've got Arfield and Osorio either side of him. And I think they give you that mix of all 3 have great engines, are super fit, and they also have that bit of tactical acumen about them. I think Osorio in particular, where they're going to be in the right positions, they're going to make sure they cover that back line, and they're not going to be too aggressive while still supporting the attack.
Doesn't Kaye give you that versatility, though, to do?
Kaye I look at as a bit more of a playmaker for me. So for sure, there's a place for him in certain games, particularly against the weaker opponents. But I do like Osorio. I think he's such a smart player.
See, I don't see that. I see Kaye as somebody who's going to sit a little bit deeper, kind of, the understudy to an Atiba Hutchinson in this team. But maybe he's versatile enough to do both, and maybe he's kind of a number 8, not a number 6. In my team, he's going to be asked to do both. Really liked what I saw out of John Herdman's box midfield that got the job done against the United States at BMO Field. So I'm putting 4 essentially central midfielders in my diamond midfield. And I've been hard on this guy in the past, but Sam Piette is for sure in my team, playing right in front of the center backs. I have Scott Arfield. I have Kaye, and then I have Osorio furthest upfield of the midfielders. I just think you can't ignore what Jonathan Osorio has done with Toronto FC over the last 2 years. He's somebody who's going to be able to connect back to front, smart with the ball. And I think over the last a couple of years, he's added a defensive element to his game. So I'm going with a 4-man diamond midfield.
That system worked in Toronto in October. There's no doubt about that. I don't really get, and I think it kind of has seemed to become a system when you look at the fact they played it again in January against Iceland. I don't really know why we're going to that system as the full-time shape when we have so many good wide players on this roster. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, shout out
move
to Sam Piette though as well, Kurt. You mentioned it. I was not high on him early on. He's only 25 years old. I can't believe it. Like, I feel like the guy's been around for so long. I think Ian Hugh mentioned him in our Hangout chat the other day, and I just forget how long Sam Piette's been around, and just how much he's improved, especially over the last few years, because he's one of the best players on the team too right now.
Oliver, so what I'm putting out this kind of four-man midfield, I'm thinking more defensively than offensively, because I think when you get to the tough games in World Cup qualifying, how do you think Canada is going to get through those games?
They're going to have to play on the break. They're going to have to, as I say, I think the strengths of this team, the speed they can play at, their ability to make opponents uncomfortable with pressure on the ball. And that lends itself to, I think, playing a transition game. And
yeah,
I think go ahead.
That's why the obvious players are further upfield for me, but I just think in the toughest moments, you want that kind of diamond midfield to flatten out, to defend in a classic 4-4-2, to fight and grind, and then going forward, you hope they can keep the ball, connect a little bit, and then hit teams on the break, right? So that's why I've kind of crowded my midfield.
Fair.
These are the questions keeping John Herdman up at night. Before we go up further on the pitch to the forwards, we have a question from the chat. Pose this to the group. If the three of you have a particular answer you want to pipe in, chime in. But Aaron asked why Manjrekar James is no longer in the Canada setup. 26 years old, playing in the Danish First Division right now with Federica.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. I mean, he probably could be, to be honest. I mean, I just holding my hand up. I haven't watched enough of him recently. I have memories from him playing under Benito Floro, and there were mixed results there. But unless one of these other guys has seen him recently, it's difficult to make a decision on him.
Well, he was a bit of a weird one because he wasn't playing for Midtjylland in Denmark, and he got loaned out. And then it seemed like his contract was going to expire in Denmark, and he'd go somewhere else to actually play games. But then Midtjylland re-signed him a few weeks.
Yeah, there are whispers that he was coming to Forge too for a little while. He was trying to find a place to play.
Yeah,
and I believe Major League Soccer as well.
So now he's staying in Denmark, and we're just going to wait and see, I guess, if he actually starts playing some games again. If he does, he's for sure a contender.
Yeah, and Herdman's big on that, obviously, right? He wants guys that are seeing minutes on the field.
Yeah.
He sounds that, not to divert too far of our conversation, but he sounds like the kind of player that would benefit from playing in the CPL then. That seems like a logical move, no?
I think he could play higher based on his past experience, but wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Minutes is definitely the question. Last week when we had Paul Stalteri on the Hangout, he agreed with the panel that right now this is the best attacking group of players Canada has ever had at its disposal. So that's where we're going to go next. Who do you guys have in the forward position, whether it's number nines, wingers, the whole group? Ollie, I'll give you the first word this time.
Yeah, so front three basically picks itself. I am a big fan of Junior Hoilett, and I think he gets maybe overlooked a little bit. He'll have a key part to play, but I've got Jonathan Davies, Lucas Cavallini, and Alphonso Davies. I think we've seen each of the last Gold Cups, actually, and maybe particularly in 2017, the potential for a combination where Cavallini gets through all the dirty work, holds the ball up, occupies the central defenders, and opens up space for these two to play into. I really like that combination. I don't think we've seen enough of it. So I'd like to see David and Davies just playing kind of wide and off of Lucas Cavallini in that central role.
It's funny because I think I'm the one who posed that question to Paul Stalteri, and I'm not even taking my own advice. I'm taking attacking players off the field. I'm trying to get as many attacking players off the field as possible, it seems. So Cavallini's not in my team, even though I think he's probably the best hold-up player Canada has at the moment. Junior Hoilett is an impact substitute for me, and Liam Miller. I mean, he's been bright as well. He's on the bench. So I'm going with the guys who got it done again in Nations League. Davies, he's not my left back. He's my striker with the freedom to basically roam and do as he pleases and play off David and try and latch onto things from my playmaking midfielders. And you have to have Jonathan David in the team just because of his ability to finish in front of goal. So Paul Stalteri, he's right. This is the best group of attackers in recent memory. I've just taken most of them off the field.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I have Alphonso Davies the left back, because my front three then, I've got Junior Hoilett, Jonathan David, and Cavallini up top at the 9. And I think that you can't go wrong with that, with those three.
Yeah, for me, I like Cavallini in there because I wonder, and I know we've talked about Canada playing on the counter attack and going into some of these tough places, but I wonder if they're going to be able to get the ball to stick up front without a presence like Cavallini. If you're trying to play out from under pressure and you've got two guys who maybe aren't the strongest, I think you can invite more pressure by not necessarily being able to get the ball up there and get it to stick and then playing off a guy like Cavallini.
Yeah.
Is Cavallini in your team?
Yes.
Yeah. See, and how do you feel about leaving him in your team when, could Canada have fared better if the ball had stuck a little more in that return leg against the U.S.? Because I think we both agree that maybe as the number 9, as the hold-up guy, as somebody who was, in there to battle, we're not sure how he fared in that game.
He didn't have a great game, no. Yeah, you could make that argument. I wouldn't want to judge a guy on one game and he as bad as it was for the whole team. I think he can do that job well, but yeah, it certainly didn't go as well as you would have hoped in the US.
I also said previously that I think he's the best hold-up guy on the team. So
well,
I'm just telling you, I'm thinking twice, right?
It's true though, and it kind of makes that game all the more of a mystery. Is that some things went wrong that you can see and explain why they went wrong, and other things you're kind of shaking your head that things that should have worked didn't work at all. Players made bad decisions. Players played badly. It was one of those nights.
And you've seen enough very good games from Cavallini. The guy always works. You know that you always get a great effort from him. He's in my lineup for sure.
Okay, well, we've heard your 11s. Now it's time for a little fun bonus question. You could take any former Canadian men's national team player in their prime, Kurt, in their prime, not how they are right now, like our old five-a-sides, but right now in their prime. That doesn't make sense. In their prime, I'm talking too much already. Who would you pick? Maybe you're addressing a certain weakness that you foresee on the team. Maybe it's a player you think needs one more kick at the can for Qatar 2022, or just someone you like to watch.
Well, I was considering giving Atiba Hutchinson a shout out because I really hope he gets the proper send-off he deserves. And I'm wondering if he's probably still should be in contention for a spot in the team. But I've decided to correct a glaring need, which I'm sure Oliver and Asa will also be doing. So I'm looking at center back. Now then, am I going to bring back a center back from Canada teams past? No, I'm going to get a little more creative than that. I'm going to go with Paul Stalteri in his prime. Great right fullback, right? But I'm converting him to a center back because I think he could play, he's proven he could play at that level. And I'm going to go with Paul Stalteri moving inside.
Yeah.
Okay. How tall is Paul?
Why does that matter?
At center back? Look, I'm the first person to defend short guys. Trust me. But I think I'm with Ollie here.
I'd take one of those guys, but Cornelius isn't the biggest guy either, right? So I'd be worried about the physical capabilities of those two.
I thought about Stalteri playing back there as well. I went real.
Play a 3. Hold on a second. Then play a 3 back. I'm not going to let you guys slander me like this. Okay, then play a 3 back and put Paul kind of as that right-sided center back.
No, you could do. Stalteri, he was a great player. I don't hate the pick.
All right.
Asa, sorry, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, I went further back. I went with Randy Samuel at center back. A bit old school, but had more caps or had the most caps before Stalteri broke his record. So veteran, smart player out of the back, hard-nosed player, developed his game in the Eredivisie and the Netherlands, and one of the best defenders Canada's ever produced.
Yeah, I've gone centre back as well. I'm a bit biased with this pick because my dad is an Ipswich Town fan, so I grew up watching this guy marshal a back line. So it's Jason DeVos. I think he was a Premier League caliber player. He's playing in a championship, and Ipswich haven't had anyone like him since, so I'll take him.
Probably a safe pick.
DeVos is all right too, yeah.
Okay, well, we got through the toughest part of the show, trying to nail down that 11. But now it's the fun part of the show. We need some kind of theme music. It's our big OneSoccer bracket challenge.
Yeah.
Now, this bracket is comprised of the 32 most important personalities in Canadian soccer. So we have 4 quarters of the bracket. We have men's national team players, we have women's national team players, we have pundits, and we have coaches. So we're going to get everyone's take on who missed out, who's the favorite, an upset, and Kurt's personal opponent. But let's start right now with any glaring omissions besides me, but it's okay, guys. I told them, don't worry about it. We'll get there.
Yeah.
I think there's a few you can make a case for here.
It's tough when you only got to pick 32.
Junior Hoilett for one.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Dunfield, I think, color commentator of Canada's.
You got caught in between. That's the problem. That's the problem. If you get caught in between, then you're out of luck.
This is the Kwame Awuah excuse. Too versatile.
Is he a pundit? Is he a coach?
Yeah. And also, I give a shout to Shalina Zadorsky, who might be the most underrated player in the women's pool. I don't really see her get the plaudits she deserves.
Yeah.
Asa, anyone stand up?
Yeah, on the media side, shout out to old-time friend of mine, Bobby McMahon, based in Winnipeg, writes for Forbes, 10,000 followers on Twitter, producing tons of content right now. Yeah, he's a good one. Bobby McMahon would get my vote.
Larson, you may or may not have had something to do with the selection committee. So anyone you were stuck on?
Well, the selection committee was an independent panel from coast to coast.
That's right.
Made up of
nearing triple digits of people of varying profiles. That's right.
Made up of soccer dignitaries. Yeah, soccer dignitaries up and down the ladder. So we cannot disagree with the panel who selected this, obviously.
But if you had to,
I don't know. I kind of want to throw like a Nigel Reed out there, just because of he's been involved.
That's a long resume. Yeah.
He's been involved in the game a long time, and he's well known to. He's a familiar voice, is what I would say. And I think if you're that familiar of a voice, then you're one of the most important personalities in the country in terms of this game. But I wouldn't seat him ahead of me.
Speaking of you, Kurt, who are you playing in this first round matchup? Do you want to reveal to the world?
I haven't looked yet, to be honest.
You haven't looked yet? I don't believe that. I think you checked it out the second it came out. I'll tell you, it's Jonathan Osorio. Are you nervous about facing off?
Who's the higher seed?
I think it's safe to say Osorio.
Well, so it's a classic battle, really, in terms of in terms of Canadian soccer, and I'll tell you why. In 2012, I was covering Toronto FC's preseason down at the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex in Orlando, and there was a young prospect by the name of Jonathan Osorio who was kind of training to the side by himself, being monitored by, I think it was Ryan Nelson then, who was the head coach. And I think I wrote a story off of that training camp and off of that observation, just noting how Jonathan Osorio was probably unlikely to make the first team. He's training by himself, didn't really seem to be getting too much attention. He wasn't really involved with the first team. So I wrote this story kind of saying I'd be surprised if Jonathan Osorio was with Toronto FC's first team this year. Well, Jonathan Osorio was with Toronto FC's first team that year, and I think he actually scored 5 goals, maybe, if I remember correctly. And later that season, he came over to me and told me that nobody had motivated him more in his career to prove someone wrong than I had by using that article, by writing that article. So in a way, I helped motivate Jonathan Osorio to great heights and where he is now. Right. So it's a classic battle. It's coming to a head, and we're finally going to decide who reigns supreme.
You like your chances?
Well, there's opportunity, I think, to go to Montreal Impact fans who I have a bit of a history with, who do not like me too much, but I think they might like me more than Jonathan Osorio. So I'm going to put a call out to all of Montreal to support me ahead of Jonathan Osorio. What's my second round matchup?
You're just looking ahead now.
You're already looking past this, or that's the most confident take I've ever heard from you. I think.
I honestly, I think it's a pick'em. I honestly think it's a pick'em.
Second round opponent.
I'm pretty sure that you would get the winner of John Herdman and Desiree Scott.
Wow. Okay.
See, nothing against John Herdman at all. He could go all the way, but I think Desiree Scott could be a bit of a Cinderella story. 150 caps, very popular player. I don't think that's a done.
Yeah. No, that's a good shout. I mean, there's some great matchups. I got to go through the bracket. I got to fill it out, make sure I go over all the critical matchups and look down the line as well as Kurt's doing.
So what's your guys' criteria for actually voting? Like, explain to me your guys' criteria, because you can take it into your. I mean, is this who you like more? Is it like who deserves it more? Is it who's more influential? Like, how are you guys voting on this?
Do you want me to explain how the voting works, or do you want my voting strategy?
There is no explanation. What do you mean explain how the voting works? There is no explanation.
I only brought up because I hadn't mentioned it. So right now the voting is live on Instagram. So you'll pull out the OneSoccer account, go to the story, and you'll see the two heads, and you slide the answer to the head that you think that should win. We have 4 matchups out as of this moment. Alphonso Davies taking on Dan Riccio.
Who's in front? Who's in front? Give us.
I don't have the credentials to the OneSoccer social account. Who do you?
Oh, okay.
You can see, can't you? I think it's public.
Well, I haven't checked in a little bit. You check it out while I pull up the other matchups.
Shirley, are we ready to call any of the races yet?
I think Fonzie's got a bit of a better chance.
With apologies to Dan, I think Alfonso may be taking this one.
Yeah. Then it's Jordan Heidema, Stephen Hart, Greg Vanny, and Janine Becky, and then Andy Petrillo and Arcadio Marcuzzi. So those are the 4 matches that are live right now on Instagram. We'll also get them on Twitter for you to vote.
The other 3 are close. We got Becky slightly ahead, Andy slightly ahead, and Heitema slightly ahead, but still race is still open.
Who's going to be the first person that writes in and tells us that we've completely scuttled this entire bracket and it's a complete mess, right?
Surely not.
I think it's a long list to be. Yeah, that's fair. It's probably already happened. So the Instagram voting is open right now. The Twitter voting will be opened up as soon as we wrap up the show, and then we'll announce a new round every single day until
we go
this whole thing down.
Are we gonna go with who we think's gonna win, or are we out of time?
This is a web-only show, and producer Kyle hasn't been yelling at us quite yet to get off the air, so I think we have time. I'll take your winner. Are you going to go with yourself, or do you think you might be in tough against John Herdman, Christine Sinclair, Alphonso Davies?
Well, I'm not going to
the 3 Titans for me.
I'm not going to back myself to win, and one of those reasons is because our graphic designer who's created this has chosen one of the worst photos of me of all time, currently circulating the internet. So right now I'm at a disadvantage because no. Well, that one's pretty bad too. But, no, it's like a photo of me from like at BMO Field from like 5 years ago, right? And so it's like, it's all about perception, right? And when I look at this photo, I don't think it's going to go well. But if I had to pick a winner, I think it's going to be. I'm just going to go with Alphonso Davies.
Sinclair for me.
He seems like so 2 Sinclairs and 2 Davies. I think Sinclair. She's still too popular after that goal scoring record, and Alfonso hasn't done his time yet. So I think this is Christine's to lose. Ollie, you mentioned that you think Desi might be the underdog of the pick. Is she your upset of the tournament?
I think so. Like I can't see anyone apart from Davies and Sinclair getting through their sides of the bracket. So I'm looking at the other 2 parts, and maybe Desiree Scott could. I think she's an 8 seed, so she'd be my underdog pick.
I think Marcuzzi over Petrillo is going to be a massive upset. Massive upset. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt me personally. It's gonna hurt me.
That's who.
Nothing against you out there, but
that's Kurt, you just pandered to the Montreal audience, and then you just tore them down. Pick a side, my guy. Asa, who's your upset pick?
Hart Heidema, the matchup right now.
Of the tournament, the whole bracket. It's on Twitter right now if you haven't seen it. I mean, you probably haven't seen it. It's brand new, but twitter.com/OneSoccer @OneSoccer for the
I think Stephen Hart's been focusing on this a lot. I think that's why he's brushed us off twice in the past week. I think that he's invested in
preparing his campaign video.
That's right. So he's making a push. So my vote's for Hart.
Okay.
That's all I have to say on this. I got to go vote.
I have to get off the air and go vote. Oh man. What I think is a matchup to be interesting of is 2 of the greatest young stars in our country right now, Alphonso Davies and Jordan Heidema, could go head to head in the round of 16 if they get through their matchup. So that could be a very interesting one. Any final words on the brackets before we say goodbye? I know Kurt wants to go vote.
Vote.
Everyone's happy?
Yeah, go vote.
Yeah, go vote. We'll get our OneSoccer creative team to make you an I voted button that you can download and add to your profile.
Have fun. That's all I got to say. Have fun.
Have fun, play safe, stay sane. I guess that's where we're gonna say goodbye today. Once again, apologies to our Wanderers fans who really want to hear from Stephen Hart. We do too, but we are working very diligently to get him on the show as soon as we possibly can. Tomorrow, though, we have another full slate of OneSoccer programming. Asa, you are hosting tomorrow. Who are you going to be speaking to?
Yeah, it should be a good one tomorrow. We have Martin Nash. That's right, the brother of very famous player Joanne Nash, played for UVic. No, of course,
that's right.
Steve Nash's brother. So yeah, we're excited to talk to Martin Nash tomorrow. Should be a good show.
And then Gareth Wheeler will round out the evening on Inside the Game, a conversation with Jack Collison. And as someone with proud Welsh heritage, I'm really looking forward to that one. So this is where we say goodbye. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting closer and closer to 5,000. We'd love for you to help us get there. Like this video as well. Share them with your friends if you're enjoying them, and come back every single day for the freshest OneSoccer content. For Kurt, Ollie, and Asa, I'm Adam Jenkins. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay sane, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
Vote for Kurt.